Hey, Pet Service Pros, this is your host, Anthony Flores. Before we get to the show, I would like to personally extend an invitation for you to join us at Pierre.fm. Pierre is a pet service marketplace that helps pet service stores accept bookings through our website and super simple to use mobile app. Just think, guys, Expedia for pet services. It's free to join. There are no setup fees, no minimums. You only pay when you get orders, and you can cancel our service anytime. Guys, consumer behavior is changing, and consumers expect a simple and transparent way to book your services. Whether you're an established pet service store and looking to stay ahead of the game or new to the pet service industry, Pierre can help you to grow your business. To learn more, visit us at Pierre.fm today. Pierre.fm. Now let's get to the show. Hey, listeners, is your pet anxious and are you wondering if CBD is safe to give your pets? We're back and I'm Anthony Flores, and today we're speaking to Andreanna Pena of Blooming Culture, a pet-friendly CBD company helping pet owners all over the world manage and overcome conditions such as seizures and anxiety with phenomenal results. We will also be learning how much CBD is too much, what to look for in a safe and effective CBD brand, and the future of the CBD industry. This is going to be really interesting, you guys, so we hope you enjoy the show.
From the Pierre headquarters in Los Angeles, Pierre presents The Shift, a pet services podcast. A show where pet service pros learn the latest trends in design, marketing, technology, and the stories from other pet industry entrepreneurs and the businesses they built.
The Shift. Andreanna, it's so good to meet you. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm super stoked about this because I think the CBD, I guess the cannabinoid industry, is a very controversial one. So I want to educate our listeners on kind of what to look out for, and we'll go into kind of what you do. But I really want to make sure that this is an educational podcast, so that moving forward, I think this industry is going to be huge. So it's good to kind of know, for our listeners to know the basics, and moving forward, how CBD actually benefits their pets. So lots of controversy in this market, right?
Lots of controversy. Everyone is trying to kind of get in the game, so to speak. You've got some amazing brands, and then you've got some not so great source brands, and not everyone knows what to look for because it is so new to so many people. So it's kind of hard to weed out who you can trust and who you can't at this point.
I agree with you. Let's talk about your Blooming Culture, which is your company, and what exactly do you guys do?
So Blooming Culture, we kind of wanted to create not only a CBD product line, but a community where people can be educated on what to look for with CBD and how to help their pet with an entire wellness plan. Because we don't truly believe that CBD, it's not a Band-Aid just to heal one thing. You can use it, yes, for anxiety and use it to help things, but in certain situations, you may also need to add other modalities of some integrative care or nutrition to actually make that CBD work to its full extent.
So it's a lifestyle.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And we really just want to be open and honest about that, I think, first and foremost, because pet parents, and as you know, you're one, when something is wrong with your pet, it makes you sick inside. So you want to be able to trust that company, and we just try to give you different tools of what you can do to help your pet.
How did you get into the industry? Let's kind of go back a little bit, and I guess you can talk about your other company too, the ice cream company.
So we have Arf Scarf, which is our dog ice cream company. We've had that for about 8 years now. We really, when we did that, we wanted to be on the higher nutritional end of dog ice cream. And I really think we conquered that. And I think our dog fans and parents will agree with that in the stores that carry us.
Pierre just had some, he definitely agrees. He's like, look at him. He's relaxing.
It definitely is a higher end ice cream that is on the market. I say we're the most premium on the market. We slow roast our meats overnight. Everything is made in small batches. But with that being said, I had a lot of health problems myself. And like a lot of people, I will say, in the cannabis community, they will say, oh my gosh, I would never smoke weed or I would never do this. And that was when my doctor said, why don't you try medical marijuana? I said,
wow.
Right. At that point, I was willing to do anything because I'm open to anything, but I really had to do some education on it. Mm-hmm. And in Illinois, where I'm from in Chicago, you had to have your medical marijuana license to go to a dispensary. One thing that I really liked about going to a dispensary, though, is because you knew what you were getting. Mm. And I hear this over and over again from people who actually were like me, who wanted it for some pain management, but didn't know how to get their license because they said, oh, I'm just asking a friend for this. So I don't know what I'm getting. I might not be getting the same thing every time because once you find something that works, you want that consistency to have it again. So the more research I did about it and how beneficial it can be and how it was helping me, and I really liked the CBD portion of it. I have a really hard time with THC. It causes a lot of anxiety for me. So once I found what worked, I started just doing a lot of research on the pet aspect of it. Mm-hmm. And since I was already in the pet industry, I thought, wow, I'm already working with these rescue groups. I had already been working with Live Like Rue, who is our partner right now at that point. So all these dogs who had cancer, I thought I can really do something more to help them. Yep. Before I could, give them an ice cream and donate and do that and make them happy. But this was actually could be life-changing for them and their pet parent. So let me roll out in that arena.
Okay, so let me back up. So I'm driving in today, and there's a well-known dispensary here in LA, and I see a huge billboard actually for them. And on the billboard, it actually says that the new normal. So is this industry, is this the new norm?
I think it's trying to be. Yes, will it become the new normal eventually? But a lot of it still is lacking the education from you go to your primary doctor. Are they really prescribing this? Are they discussing it with you? Are most vets discussing it still? No. So until I think that happens, and part of why that doesn't happen, because I talk to vets, is they're not taught that in school. Mm-hmm. So then how can they teach it to their clients or discuss it? And also it was really frowned upon to prescribe it.
You know what, I agree with you. I think that, going back to what you said, when you tried it for yourself, that you had problems with the THC part, which I personally have tried CBD oil as well. And I'm not big on the THC part. I've tried smoking, and, my wife will tell you that I get stoned and I'm just completely quiet and I'm worthless, basically, right? So explain to the listeners, I guess, the difference between, CBD and THC.
So THC is the psychoactive part of marijuana. Now, there are hundreds of different cannabinoids that are part of the plant that, as more research is being done, we're finding out that they also do good things for the body. But currently, it's really the THC and the CBD that have the spotlight shined on them, where CBD is the non-psychoactive part of the plant that also produces benefits. You will hear, though, different things about this. So sometimes, people say, oh, if you just do CBD straight, you're fine. If you just do CBD with a little THC, that's going to help you more. Then other people want, half THC and half CBD to get the full benefit. Things work differently on everyone. So I can't exactly say if you take this CBD,
That's
it's going to work for you.
Right.
You might need the 1% of THC to kind of kick it up a notch, but not too much to make it psychoactive for you. But what you can do that I learned from being around people who do take a lot of THC at times, CBD actually brings it back down.
I see.
So they'll actually carry a CBD tincture with them if they get too high.
Wow. Professionals.
Yeah, professional. That's what I went to. Yes. I think a dinner in Chicago for people and people were smoking a lot. And I thought, oh, wow. But you know what? It makes sense because that's actually, so if you take something that is low in THC and really high in CBD, that's why you don't feel it as much, is because it kind of counteracts it. I
have friends that are fully functioning, pot smokers, and they do it first thing in the morning, last thing before they go to bed, and you wouldn't even be able to tell.
And again, it's just because it affects every single system differently.
Yep.
And it's the same thing with pets. When we hear, oh, this didn't work. Like some people may love one brand, and then the next pet parent says, that brand didn't work at all for me. It's because it's coming from a different plant, which is in a completely different strain. So I also say, like, not every medication, like a lot of people take antidepressants. So sometimes Prozac works for one, the next person hates Prozac. It's the exact same thing.
Gotcha. Huh. So let's go back to our pets and CBD. For our listeners, educate them on perhaps a use case as to why they would want to use CBD for their pets.
Well, I would say our personal two biggest use cases that we get would be anxiety and cancer. Anxiety, pretty straightforward. My dog is nervous in the car. My dog is nervous flying. My dog has slight aggression when they go out. And so because they're very nervous. But again, I'm very careful. When I answer those type of things, when it gets into the aggression part, I always recommend see a trainer. Like, this is not curing the aggression problem. You can use it in sync with a trainer.
Yep.
But don't just do the CBD.
Gotcha.
And with cancer, it just has so many benefits. So in certain types of cancers, it's shown to be able to decrease some of the cancerous cells. Also, if a pet is going through chemotherapy, they can get really nauseous, just like people. It stimulates the appetite. It makes them more comfortable. Also, in older pets, joint pain, I would say that's huge. But what we've also really tried to explain is it's like a multivitamin. It has so many benefits that if you start it with your pet at a younger age, the potential to prevent certain things later in life is really great.
So give me an example. So, you have a dog that's, say, 10 pounds, smaller dog. I want to get into dosage because how much is too much? And then, could it become potentially toxic to an animal if you give them too much? So discuss, I guess, serving size as it relates to oil, and also how much is too much? When do you know that?
So CBD, the great thing about it is it's non-toxic. As long as it's CBD with no THC.
Yep.
And that would be if they were taking some human grades of it. But your pet, basically, you might just see them, like, we'll get pictures of they're just completely passed out. I'm not saying that's too much, but then at that point, you've done enough.
Yep.
And again, since it affects every pet differently, another pet could have that same dosage and not feel the same way. But I would say the standard dose is about 1 milligram per 10 pounds.
Okay.
Twice a day. And that's where the clinical trials have been done. And there haven't been a ton. But that's where it tends to be seen as being effective in a pet.
I want to go into the clinical trials in a sec, actually. That's really interesting because, we'll start with the FDA. And there's been little, I guess, to no studies with the FDA at this point. Give us kind of, a background on what's happening with the FDA and, what I guess, conceivably, what do you see happening in the future as far as them actually looking at this as a viable way of helping ourselves and our animals?
So, right. And because it's not approved, that's why the clinical studies have lacked, because they can't do them. My personal feeling on it is once they figure out how to regulate everything and tax it accordingly is when things will start flowing smoother.
Oh my God. You know what this reminds me of is a lot of people have heard about Bitcoin, but behind Bitcoin is a hell of a technology called blockchain, right? And it's kind of the same idea, I feel like, when I hear, the idea behind CBD and the potential for CBD, I feel like it starts to get held back, one, because it's something disruptive and, we don't know enough about. And who knows who's on the risk assessment board at the FDA, right? Who knows how old they are? Who knows how educated they are when it's related to CBD? But you definitely know, in Congress that many of the people that sit on the board that make the decisions are older. They don't know shit about blockchain, right? And they don't understand the benefits to blockchain. So, we get held back as a nation because, one, the lack of education, two, the potential threat on just streamlining things. So I want to, kind of go into, what are the threats with, making CBD FDA approved? Is that a potential threat to big pharma? I just kind of want to understand, what's actually happening.
I think that's a big part of it, is big pharma. And then where do you draw the line between CBD and marijuana? I think that's a huge problem in terms of how they see it. Because then when you're driving a car, they say you can't test for marijuana if you get pulled over.
Oh, interesting.
Where you could test for alcohol. So I think there's so many fuzzy lines that they can't figure out what to do with. And then with the whole pet situation, so the states that are legalized currently, there's an uptick there's a downtick in opioid use, but an uptick in pets coming in with marijuana overdoses. So that's actually forced vets to have to learn about how to revive a pet, per se, when they have this.
Oh, wow.
So I think there's so many problems. And then because it's not federally regulated, the banks don't want to take it on either.
Wow.
So the problem is just way bigger than I think anyone realizes, that there's so many things to be weeded out. And you're right, the age of who's in charge may have a lot to do with it. But I still believe that they're trying to figure out how to regulate it so they can make money off of it.
That could be a while. So
right, that could be a while. And even with the Farm Bill passing at the beginning of the year, then what they did is they put the burden on the state to say whether, what they want to do exactly with CBD. Because originally they said CBD, as long as it was coming from an industrial plant overseas and had less than the 0.3 THC, was legal.
Gotcha.
And that was going back before this. But then it turned into, okay, well, now you can source it from the US, because I didn't want to source it from overseas. A lot of people didn't. I think that's twofold. Some people say they've been doing it for a lot longer. It's good. But I wanted to know my grower. And I think that's really important to a lot of smaller brands coming out, that they want that relationship. And then speaking just for legalizing in California, we were the first state this year to actually have something or a bill passed that saying vets could talk about it legally with the pet owners. And I would say vets still do not want to do it.
Yeah, I think what their hesitation is probably because there's no, FDA studies yet. So they just kind of opt out, maybe for liability reasons. Right. But that means we have to take it into our own hands, right? So how would a dog owner, how would they evaluate a product to make sure that it's safe and effective for their pets?
So one thing you always want to check is if it's third-party tested. So you want to be able to see those results. We have ours not only third-party tested by the grower that we get it from, but then we get it third-party tested ourselves. And that's also because who we sell through has very strict guidelines, our wholesale partners.
So how does the third-party testing work? Explain, can you get into that a little bit so we understand?
They send it to a lab that's not affiliated with them.
Okay.
And they just have to test that because you have to test it in the facility it's being made. So then they have to send it out to a lab, and then they have to send us the report to show that it was sent to the lab. And this is really what they are giving us.
Gotcha.
And then when I get it, I resend it out to a different lab.
Mm-hmm.
So I make sure that it is what they say it is, because it's not cheap for anyone involved.
Yep.
So you want to, and you also, people have people's lives in hands. I have pets' lives in hands.
Yep.
And they can't talk to you and tell you, oh, this might be not really right.
Yep.
So you want to do your best due diligence to try to give them what you think is the best.
So how do they evaluate it? A dog ingests CBD.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, they can't talk. What kind of feedback are we looking for to make sure that it's safe?
Well, in terms of safe, I can't speak on that.
Sure.
But I can speak on, I've been sent videos of, I would say joint pain is the biggest.
Okay.
To see a before and after. Actually, I got an amazing anxiety video last week. This dog was just howling, and I did post it. And then she had been using it over the course of a few weeks, and how calm the dog had become. It was amazing.
Wow.
So people are so appreciative because, again, it goes back to when your pet is in pain or in that state of anxiety, you feel so helpless, and you just want to do everything you can to help them. So we're giving the pet owner a peace of mind too.
That's right. Because think about what would be the alternative. Is there Xanax for pets?
Yes.
Is there?
I mean, there is. And
really?
A lot of, Prozac for pets, there is. And it's a lot cheaper. It's like $6 a bottle. So the feedback that we get from that normally, though, is my pet looks like a zombie when I give it to them. So I'm not sure.
Is that good or bad?
Well, in speaking from someone who also knows how anti-anxiety medications work, they last in your system. You can't just cut them out cold turkey.
Mm-hmm.
With CBD, you can. It filters right out. So you're not stuck on something, and you can use them actually together. And what some vets do recommend is that if you want to taper some, like the Prozac off, is you start incorporating the CBD with it, and then you start tapering the Prozac. You don't ever just cut it cold turkey. But again, yes, you're looking at alternative wellness plan that is going to be more expensive, but it might make your pet feel better. So you do have to weigh, and I get it. Some people are not in the financial situation where they can just use CBD every day for their pet, especially if they're using it as a preventative measure. But at least we want to educate everyone on this is the options that they have.
You know, it's funny, like if you take aspirin, it has various different ways that it helps you, right? You have a headache, boom. It can go to pain, boom. Some people use it as a preventative from heart disease, etc. Right? I guess let's geek out a little bit. I know that you're not a scientist, and I know that you're not a vet, but I guess talk about the intake process of ingesting CBD as it enters the pathway into a dog's system. How does it know, I guess, how to target certain issues that dogs are actually having?
So it kind of does the same thing, I would say, that aspirin does, is where it can go to the receptors. It knows where the pain is, but it basically brings down inflammation in the body, which is as we know, inflammation can be a key cause of any type of disease. So that's what makes it such a good preventative measure in the wellness plan. But we always recommend you can do it in a treat for a pet, but the sublingual method, and this goes for humans too.
Yep.
They have these glands in their mouth, and we talk a lot about it on our website. So it basically, once it hits the glands, it hits all the receptors. And that's the only thing the body is processing at that point. But if you put it in a treat, and I'm not saying treats are bad, I just like to say do it in addition to, because you're processing that food at the same time you're processing the CBD. So some of that CBD is going out because it's going through the liver that way. So they're not getting the full effect of it.
Gotcha.
And we actually get that feedback a lot. We don't have treats currently. We are going to be launching some. But the feedback is my dog ate these treats. They didn't work. And then people like give up on CBD. And I say, don't give up on it. Like try it this way. Or if this one's not working, try a different brand. Because again, it's coming from every different plant strain.
So we'll say that you give, your pet CBD. Will you immediately be able to see the effect of it, or does it take time to get into their system?
It's on a case-by-case scenario.
Again. Interesting.
So it can take, we say, up to 2 weeks. So if there is, like 4th of July is coming up, and if your pet's never had CBD, we recommend starting it 2 weeks prior. And this, again, goes for people too. There's a lot of we have the same endocannabinoid system as a pet does. Or they have the same as us.
Yep.
And so that's why we can kind of go off of how things work. But yes, it does need to build up in the body for a lot of pets and people. So again, if there is that one big thing you want it for, you should start trying it ahead of time so you don't give it that day and you're like, oh, it didn't work. Because 4th of July in particular is the highest rate for CBD use from pet stores or pet store sales that there is. So, and then we'll get other customers though that say, oh, I just dose it whenever I feel like they need it for like a car ride and it works perfectly.
Okay.
So again, it's just case by case. Every pet is different like every person.
Makes sense, totally. I want to go into your own product line, safety standards and your idea behind the SKUs that you're carrying and the products that you currently carry.
So when I did start looking into CBD, whether it was for people or pets, I think a lot of what I saw was wording that wasn't transparent, words used as hemp oil, but it's still actually the hemp plant. So it might be hemp seed oil and not hemp oil or CBD. There's so many variations. And I just wanted to, make my labels very clear.
Yeah.
And this is what you're getting. And then dosing was another big factor for us. And that's why we have 4 different milligram bottles, because we want to just make it super easy. Like this is for your pet who weighs this to this much. Each of our bottles lasts approximately 30 days. Because again, the feedback that I was getting from other pet owners that were using CBD, they would say, oh, but this CBD is only $20. Well, it lasted me a week and a half. Okay. Well, that doesn't make sense though, because you don't want to keep buying that bottle every week and a half. So we just wanted to formulate it in terms of, or make a product that it would last about 30 days and was easy for people to dose.
Yep.
Because that is one of the biggest questions we always get is, how do I dose my pet? How do I dose my pet? And even though we have so many things again on our website, we still get emailed that question. And then another thing was, I'm huge on not having preservatives or additives. I don't like natural flavorings. We don't use that in any of our products. So it's really just simple. It's MCT oil and the CBD.
So is that kind of in the drop form?
Yes.
Gotcha.
That's the tincture. We have a sun butter. I know a lot of people do not know what sun butter is.
I don't know what the hell that is. So talk to us about that.
Sun butter is, I like to equate it to a higher level of peanut butter, but it comes from sunflower seeds. So dogs who have allergies, it's really good for. We use, our sunflower seeds are grown in the US. Peanut butter tends to, because the peanuts are underground, they usually have some level of mold in them.
Yep.
And that doesn't mean it's bad. And a lot of people can tolerate that mold. And the different levels also depend on where you're sourcing your peanut butter from and if the company is going to test for them. But sunflower seeds have a lot less chance and level of having them because they're grown above ground. So that's why pets with allergies, it's just easier for them to have. It also just is more nutrient dense and it has more antioxidants. And so again, when we were creating our product line, we kind of wanted to make it as high level as we could. And that's why we chose to use sun butter over peanut butter for this. And it's just, like, it's a fun treat. You can freeze it. You can put it in a toy so they can spend their time licking it. Ours is only 125 milligrams. So it can be used in addition with the oil.
Gotcha. Can you discuss, I guess, where Bloom Culture's products are actually made? Are they made here in the States? Can you get into, where that takes place?
So all of our oil is made in Colorado or grown there. And then the sun butter is packaged in LA. And then we also have a topical balm. So in keeping with, I really like to source everything in the USA. But with the certain ingredients I have in the balm, they were better if I sourced them overseas.
Gotcha.
With that being said, though, I use only ingredients that are fairly traded or sustainably sourced. So I know exactly where they're coming from. And again, I have no preservatives in that product either. And it's vegan. So we don't use beeswax. And going back to our sun butter, it's also nut-free. So even for people with peanut allergies, which some people can't give their pet things with peanut butter who have peanut allergies, so they can use this.
That's right. People have allergies. I want to say that the airlines had recently just completely got rid of peanuts because you can't even be remotely close to peanuts.
Right.
Why is that? Just not even being close to them. What's happening there? Is it kind of the recycled air inside of the plane?
And then what if someone is eating a peanut next to you, though? You don't know them and they ordered the peanuts. So I guess. So actually the facility that creates our sun butter is free of the top 8 allergens.
As far as your model, are you kind of B2C, B2B, a little bit of both? How do people purchase your product?
So we are, I would say, 98% B2C, but we are launching more and more with, I would say, companies that align with, we're not going after specific pet companies. It's more wellness companies. Because we feel that if you're doing that for yourself, you're going to be more inclined to use that product for your pet too. So we are launching with Hello MD in the next month, which they're based in San Francisco. And that is going to be a fabulous online partner. And they do a subscription box model, I believe.
So is that CBD for humans?
They do both, but it's mostly CBD for humans. They also do marijuana.
So I have
or
some
cannabis. Sorry.
They do cannabis too. I have a bottle of the tincture from one of the well-known dispensaries out here. Can I give that to my dog too? Is the human grade and the stuff that we use for dog or the dosage, is it safe to give to him too?
It can be safe as long as you know what the additives are in it. It can't have with flavorings. There is some CBD for pets that have a bacon flavoring, but that's not something they would make for people. So sometimes they put like peppermint in it for people, or they put xylitol, which dogs are highly allergic to. So you just have to be careful, one, on that. Two, most people can't convert how many milligrams they're supposed to be giving their pet, what's on the human bottle.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of it's just about conversion. But yes, if you have a CBD that you know is like clean and free of preservatives and flavorings, and you know exactly how to dose it, then CBD is CBD.
Gotcha. So you really have to check out the bottle. I guess ideally it's a brand that you're familiar with and that you can recommend and try. It's just so early. It's just such early days, right?
It's so early, but everyone is just really trying to get in the game. And a lot of the companies who sell through dispensaries, who are really on the cannabis side, are now also coming out with just CBD lines.
Wow.
Because that's where you can sell to all 50 states pretty much.
Yeah, what is the law? I mean, it's funny because you see a lot of dispensaries here that have gotten licenses, but for some reason, there's still a little bit of gray area, or the state of. I'm talking about the state of California. I don't know what it's out. What it looks like outside of California, but I know that we kind of have approval, and then we don't. And you see a lot of these guys that are carrying a lease on, say, a $6,000-$7,000 a month retail store, and they can't sell the THC side, so they're living on the CBD. Can you give us like an idea? What's the consensus? What's actually happening right now?
I don't know if I can speak a ton on that point. But I do know what I do know is you have to have, and this is the reason why you don't see the cannabis brands in every state, even if there is dispensaries, because you have to have a grower license in that state. So that makes it really hard for crossover because those licenses are really expensive.
And how do you get them?
I don't know exactly because, again, I'm not in the cannabis exactly field, but they're very expensive. There can only be a certain amount of permits per square mile. They can't be around schools. There's so many laws that go into it. So that's why some people also shy away from the whole cannabis aspect because the CBD is a little more generous.
Yep.
But again, I think that would be one really good thing when cannabis, if it becomes legal everywhere. Because what I found living in Illinois is there was certain products that helped me way more that I would buy in Colorado or in California. But again, you wouldn't have them in Illinois because they didn't have a license to sell there.
Yep.
And so I think just, you want that consistency, like I said again. And if you find something that's truly helping you, like medical marijuana has helped so many people that you want to be able to have access to it.
That's right. It's still, like I said, it's early and, it's, the idea of regulation is still very gray. And it's like, you don't even know which boundaries you can, work within because there's no laws drawn up. So I'm curious to know, like, how do you look at the future of your own business and the industry? What does that look like? How are you forecasting the next 4 to 5 years in this business?
I'm really positive. I think people are really opening up to it. And just like me, for instance, who was completely not on like the cannabis side of things, I think CBD just is a wonderful alternative. And it's actually, what's weird is it's the older demographic who is some of the most, or the biggest purchasers of the CBD or even cannabis.
That's hilarious because a friend of mine, we were in Fullerton, and he smokes a lot, and he's like, I need to go pick some stuff up. And we go into a dispensary. I'd say probably 80% of the people were older, were retired. It's just a trip to see, walking in there to see all of the different people that are buying this. I mean, it's kind of cool, but at the same time, it's crazy because you're like, wow, the world is changing. It's changing freaking quick.
It is one of the companies I love here at Papa and Barclays for people.
Mm-hmm.
They actually, I know they used to do this a lot too when they started, was take buses from the senior homes and take them to the dispensaries.
Oh, wow.
And now they said that it's like the intro product for them was a topical. And I think that still remains true for a lot of people, is the topical. And then once they see that the topical, and this actually even happened to me, I was like, oh my gosh, it's going to go in the skin. So most topicals are not transdermal. So they're not going to get in the bloodstream. So you're not going to feel the effects, even if it does have some THC in it. So they start with that. And then they're like, oh, well, that wasn't so bad. Now maybe I can do a tincture. I'm not saying they're going to smoke, but I think like an oil is a really good option for people who like their next step into trying that.
Yeah, it's kind of, it's an easy transition. You're not ingesting anything and then you can get a feel and get comfortable with it. I think that would be the biggest barrier I think that I had. I'm like, oh shit, I'm putting this into my body. I don't quite understand it. I think that's one of the reasons for, I think, the progress in this industry currently. It's just people conflate the THC side with the CBD side, and it's kind of lack of education at the same time. So it's in that respect, I think once the FDA steps up to the plate, it'll bring a little bit more clarity and also, understanding, what are the confines of how we, from a business standpoint, where are we at? It was, like I said, I brought up the blockchain industry earlier. I think that's one of the biggest problems is that it's moving so fast that there are no rules or regulations. So you don't know what's legal and what's not. I guess from a business standpoint, can something come back to bite you in the CBD industry?
So when I first was going to do this, my mother had said, I want it completely separate from other company. And I said, why? It's CBD. And I will say I consulted with a lawyer in Chicago, and she said, oh, you need to make sure you do this. And I was like, I'm not doing this. I'm just trying this out. And my mom was like, well, they could come after our house. I said, okay, I don't really think that's true.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, in a far away land.
Worst case scenario.
Yes. Yeah. And so then about 6 months later, my mom's like, well, do you think we could just merge the companies under the LLC?
Yeah.
And I said, no. not after you had this whole entire... So, but again, I think I'm willing to take a little more risk. Do I really think down deep something is going to come back and bite me? Absolutely not.
Okay, yeah.
But someone my mom's age, again, thinks a little more carefully about that.
Going back to, let's discuss marketing for a minute. It's not the easiest industry, I guess, to actually market online at this point, is it?
No, so you cannot do Google ads. No paid Facebook or Instagram ads. You can do some funneling if you hire a certain company. Like companies will do it for a very large amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say most people starting in this, or a lot of people starting in the CBD or even cannabis, don't have those funds to do that. So they're just doing grassroots. They're doing organic growth. I mean, you're going to get the big players in there. And that's also what some of the smaller cannabis brands are worried about, is that when it does become completely legal, that they will get lost because they can't keep up with the marketing once it is able to happen. But touching back to the last point I was going to have, what really still happens a lot, though, is payment processing gets shut down.
That's right. Yep.
It just happened to another company here in California last week, New York the week before that. I will not tell you what I did, but I've been good for now like 8 months.
Okay.
and I'm keeping it that way. And I'm so thankful because the processing company that I used wanted me to go to US Bank about 6 months ago or more. And that's where so many companies flock to, because all of a sudden US Bank opened up and they said, we'll take CBD companies.
Wow.
And then, so all these companies went there. And then about a month and a half ago or 2 months ago, they shut them all down.
No way.
They said it was too much risk. And so I had someone posted this on Instagram, a friend of mine, because I didn't know about it. And I'm thinking, wow, just by accident, I literally didn't go to US Bank because I'd moved to California and I just didn't have time to switch.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, God, I didn't, because it's just a pain. I was shut down already by PayPal at the beginning. So I can never have a PayPal account again.
Wow.
Or personal PayPal either, because it's all linked to your name. And so they know. I was shut down. So I sell on Shopify. Shopify uses Stripe.
Yep.
So Stripe doesn't allow it.
Wow. And Stripe is a very progressive, forward-thinking company. This is a high, the brothers that started that, these guys are, they're like really heavy tech guys, coders. So I'm really surprised to hear that. What about Square?
Square, no, because they're owned by PayPal.
Ah, that's right.
And I'm not saying I haven't used Square for a few things. But when I did, and it was very random because I don't process my cards normally like that, they, the next day, held my money and made me sign something that I would not sell anything illegal again, even though I'm not really sure how they found out that's what I processed.
Wow. Are you sure? Is it not Stripe that's owned by PayPal? Because Square is owned by Jack Dorsey that started Twitter.
No, you know what? Maybe it's not. It's Venmo.
Venmo, yes.
Sorry.
Yep.
So, but I did get, so Square also flagged me though.
Okay.
I apologize. And then, so I'm good on Venmo, and I don't really do anything on Venmo, but someone wanted to, one of my retailers wanted to pay me through Venmo.
Wow.
And I said, it's really the only thing that I have safe, and I pay people like that. So I was like, I prefer everything just cash. And even like our grower only takes cash or check.
Wow.
And again, it's because of the whole entire banking system. So think about that as a small company like me. I have to front that money. So it's an expensive business because people don't take cards a lot. And then my processing fee for the company I do use on my site, I get hit with like 6%.
Wow.
And that's actually not as bad as it could be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if it's for risk management. If something comes back, then
Right.
they're basically covered. We've had issues with a processor that we've used where, it's all about protecting them. They are constantly trying to, protect themselves, and the customer, unfortunately, is last. But what options do you have, especially if you're so are you selling? People can buy your stuff online, right?
Yes.
Okay, so go into that. Like, how would someone buy from Blooming Culture, and maybe discuss, kind of go into that? They can use their credit card too, right?
They can totally use their credit card. When I was first bumped out of the 2 processing companies originally, I was told, well, why don't you just have people Venmo you?
Yep.
And I thought, that's not professional.
Yep.
So basically, I just shut it down for like 2 weeks. But I do know almost every CBD company has been shut down at least once. Almost.
Wow.
Which then that hurts. You lose all those sales. It's just a really bad cycle to be in. But yeah, so we are fully up and running. We take all credit cards.
Cool.
And that's why I'm just not rocking the boat per se to look for anything at a lower rate, just because I still know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really sad. But I did watch, I watched Shark Tank. I was watching Kevin O'Leary speak about investing in CBD months ago. And he just said it's not worth it because if anything does come back to him, all of his assets are at risk.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's where some of the bigger investors like that, and I'm not saying, because there is huge companies investing in CBD,
Yeah.
but someone like him, he doesn't want that risk on his table.
You know what? I think that he's a certain type of investor. He's a very conservative investor. He wants proven products. I think that, the future, I think, is bright. Like we said earlier, it's still early. I think that also, much like blockchain, it will kind of continue to progress. And I think that some of these merchant processors will eventually kind of open. Who knows what high level discussions they're having kind of on the back end, because they're heavily regulated too. So it's just and I admire some, other countries in some ways because they're just a little bit more progressive, willing to take a little bit more risk. And it's going to be interesting to kind of see what happens in, the next few years in this industry too. If, our listeners have questions, if they wanted to reach out to you, what is the best way for them to contact you?
hello@bloomingculture.com. I answer all the emails personally. What's awesome too is we work with an integrative vet here in LA, Dr. Tori Counter, and she's really great because she does integrative, again, so using all those other modalities that we like to incorporate with the CBD, like acupuncture, and she does laser therapy and herbals. But she also is knowledgeable on CBD. And I think one of the biggest questions also we get is a lot of these pets are on medication already, whether it be the anxiety medication or the medication for cancer or IBD. So she is kind of there too, because I am not a vet, but to be my sounding board, what is good to work with it, how long you should be off of that, interactions, everything.
Gotcha. Look, you guys reach out to Andreanna. She lives, eats, and sleeps this. So if you guys have further questions, reach out to her. If you're outside of LA, send her an email. I mean, you guys ship nationwide at this point?
We ship nationwide. Cool. I'm very email responsive. You can DM me on Insta. I get messages on Facebook, Instagram, email every day. So
cool.
And I'm happy also to call you. I also call people, and sometimes a phone call is just quicker.
That is true. People don't do enough of that these days. Andreanna, thank you so much for coming. This is super interesting.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hey guys, we really hope you enjoyed this episode, and thanks so much for listening to the show this week. You can subscribe wherever you're listening, and we love feedback. So feel free to also leave us a review. You can also visit us on Instagram at Book with Pierre. Until next time, I'm Anthony Flores, and you're listening to The Shift, a pet service podcast.